So
we're live now, though.
We are live. Well, welcome everybody to the live. So it says going live now.
So normally our fine host Caroline runs this thing, and she takes care of us, but she's in bed sick today, so you're going to have to mess with these couple of stooges today, and as we fall through StreamYard here. But definitely wanted to hang out with everyone today and get your questions answered. Maybe Caroline can hop on for a minute and then help us out, but we don't care if you have bedhead or anything, Caroline.
I think she's on her deathbed.
She's on her deathbed. Okay.
Deathbed, and probably does have bedhead. So I was on a Zoom live earlier, but what we can do, I don't know how to bring people to the stage, but we can do the anatomy of a real estate pre-foreclosure deal and ask. I can ask you a bunch of questions as we go through it. So I don't know if anyone's in the chat or if we can even see the chat yet. So
a person or two that's commented.
Okay, cool. So I can't really see them. I don't have control.
A post on my story to get some people over here.
Cool. Yeah, throw them over. But we are live, and then I can get going. So let's just give it a little minute before we do that. Okay, there we go. I've got some people. We got Dondies, Rachel. Sweet. Hey, you know what? Let's go. Let's take this away. So the question is, I don't have the ability to add anybody to the stage, Michael. So maybe we have to take questions in the side chat. But let me just kick it off again. Appreciate Caroline, all she does. I know she's straddling two horses. She's got her sub-2 stuff that she's doing, training a lot of the new students, and doing a lot of deals. And then I think this live is one thing she puts together for free and has guests like Michael and I on. And our goal is to answer questions relative to the foreclosure process, what to do, how to do it, how to navigate through some sticky situations. I've already been on calls, several this morning, with homeowners, talking to them about their options, banks, everything above. So let me do this. Let me run through the anatomy of a pre-foreclosure deal, Michael, and then I've got some questions for you as we go down it. So this process, it's interesting. A lot of you are new. Matter of fact, let's in the side chat, those that have done a deal, give a thumbs up. If you have not done a deal, give a thumbs down. So we'll see where everybody is relative to the pre-foreclosures. So pre-foreclosures are a very unique opportunity to get involved with a transaction. A lot of times they're not on the market. These are not listed with a real estate agent for the most part. Sometimes they could be. Sometimes you're finding them through various sources. And I'll ask that in a little bit. But it looks like we've got
about 50-50 right now. It looks like close to. Okay.
I see Aaron. I see Lindsay. A lot of the greats that are out there hustling. Been 3 months since my first deal. Okay, I think it's Jesse Lee. So still good. So the anatomy of a deal, we've got to identify the leads. Before anything happens, you've got to have data. You've got to have leads. Where are you guys finding your data? That's something I'm very curious. Some people I hear Zillow or foreclosure.com, and that's great. You're getting that data. The challenge is you're getting it a little too late. You're not getting it real time. But the lead comes in. Once we have a lead, there's all these forks in the road. You either call them or door knock. It's a contact point to the homeowner. And if you have that information that's skip trace, that's a good thing. Your ability to connect quicker and with the right individuals and kind of put a puzzle together, you have a lot better chance if that information has been skip traced or you have that contact information. So once you contact the homeowner, what now? That's where a lot of people get. Sometimes they get stuck on, okay, I looked on foreclosure.com and I've looked at a deal. There's many components that you have to go through, before that. But once you evaluate the deal, you've got to make contact with that homeowner. So Michael, give the students a couple ideas, tips. What are some of the openers that you say in a cold call when you're calling somebody for the first time? They answer the phone and say, hello, this is, I'm obviously the person that is losing my house. What are some of the openers that you would suggest the students?
It's funny. My opener's been the same for like 6 or 7 years now, and it's roughly what I said on my first door knock. My door knocks, my cold calls, even some of my texts and Facebook messages are somewhat similar. So I'll go through it, but don't get hung up on the exact verbiage, right? A lot of it is your how you approach the situation. Do you actually care about the seller? They will feel these things, but generally, I'll knock on the door and say something like this. Hey, my name's Michael. Noticed that Wells Fargo had set a foreclosure sale for next week. Just wanted to drop by and see if I could provide any value. It's just something like that's very simple. I'm not talking about buying their house or giving them a cash offer. I'm just trying to be kind of that local helpful hand that is just providing some options, providing some value, and seeing if I can help. And many times they'll just pour out their soul to you. Sometimes they are a little bit terse and maybe, they have it taken care of or they slam the door, but that's where objection handling comes in. And it's part of our sales process that we practice and get better at over time.
I think the reality is I see a lot of posts sometimes in the various groups that say, hey, I've got this homeowner and they're just really being stubborn. And, I've never been able to force anyone to sell their home. I don't know about you, Michael, but
not yet.
Yeah.
Or what I want to.
If we could be multi-billionaires, right?
Correct.
That's not what we're in the business of doing, is forcing people to sell their home. It is going through options. And sometimes I hear a lot of the students even recommending, bankruptcy. On one of the recent calls we have, they're talking through all these bankruptcy things. And I'm saying, you know what, why are we suggesting that? You're not an attorney, not the best idea to be doing that. It is an option, absolutely, but it does delay the inevitable. So we want to be careful there. Had a question from Chasen, and Chasen, I'm sorry, I don't know how to bring you on the stage. So is going through the trustee website, Michael, better than the county recorder or vice versa? Do you guys pull data from both?
We pull data from all. So imagine, the trustee sites, the county sites where they post the foreclosure notice, auction sites, attorney sites. There's a bunch of different sources, and it's a lot of work to go through there and look at all those. For one, it can be hours a day, but we take all those sources nationwide, compile them down for you every day, and give you that most up-to-date information, the daily stuff that gets you there, ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, and data is key, absolutely key to this whole business. I found I was wasting a lot of time trying to find and track down individuals. You've got the property address, you can pull it off the county website. If you're going to the trustees' sites, you're there with everybody else. Sometimes that data is good, and sometimes it's great to be first. Sometimes it's great to be last.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on where you are on the cycle. So if you were to ask, say, what is the key timing? I would say all of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
So I'm a math nerd, right? I have a math degree, taught math to ninth graders that didn't care about it, and I don't blame them. But
so I would call you a mathlete.
A mathlete. Ooh, that's
Yeah.
nice. Is that like a Mean Girls? I'm pretty sure that's a Mean Girls reference.
I don't know. I called my son that. I said, if you're good at math, you're a mathlete. That's
Mathlete.
something. Yeah.
Yes, because Katie on Mean Girls is a mathlete. Anyway,
I have not watched Mean Girls, and you just acknowledged and admitted that you have. So
I have it. There's so many good references. I have no shame on this.
that's good.
But anyway, I am a nerdy guy in some ways in terms of the math. So I had done 300 or 400 foreclosure deals at one point, and I kind of wanted to get better on leveraging my time. So I'm like, I'm just going to plot the point in time in which I signed this contract along the foreclosure continuum for Missouri, right? So I started seeing a pattern. They would sign in the first couple of days after the notice of trustee sale came out, and they would sign a couple of days before the sale took place. And then there was a few kind of in the middle, but not so many when you looked at the grand scheme. So I'm like, this is called the first 10-day list. This is called the last 10-day list. And that's where I focused my time. So people started thinking, well, is that the only spots where I'm trying to engage people? Absolutely not. Bobby said the whole continuum. Now, when they're not signing contracts, that doesn't mean you're ignoring them. You're building rapport. You're having those conversations. You're walking them through their options, being a valuable asset. And then when time runs out, well, then they're signing a contract with you. So it's very valuable to know that information just because you can know how to leverage your time just a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree with that. So TC asked a question, is it feasible to include the seller in the exit strategy via JV? And that's a loaded question. I'll let you respond, and then I'll respond to that
Where
as
is
well.
that question?
It's about the fourth or fifth near the bottom. So is it feasible to include the seller in the exit strategy via JV?
So I've done many times what I call a partnership deal. Before I even start going down this path, I don't recommend this for a new investor. This is for someone that's really experienced, has some risk tolerance. If you want to do a deal like this, I would recommend you wholesale it to a guy like me or Caroline or Bobby or someone that you trust in your market. But basically, there are occasions when there's a bunch of equity, and maybe the seller wants to capitalize on a good majority of that you can, buy this house subject to, buy it cash, whatever your strategy is. And then you can arrange with them to maybe list the house on the market or put some money in it and list it full market retail, and then partner with them on the back end. But again, there's other ways that are less risky for you. I would prefer you guys to, just buy this house cash, give them the amount of money that they can, and get them out from underneath the deal. Or there's ways to novate the deals, list them on the market for full value, pocket what you can get, maybe get the seller a little bit more because it's, being advertised to everyone. Again, we can go down the path of talking about those JV deals, but in the current environment of real estate, I would recommend, really improving your sales process in terms of, hey, you need to paint a picture for these sellers of what can happen, right? We need to get them to their ideal realistic outcome. And you can paint the picture of the amount of money you can give them, all the value you're giving them to get to that outcome. You need to paint that path for them and try to get them out of the deal. Because just imagine you do a partnership deal, right? All of a sudden, you're partners with this person. They want to know all kinds of answers and questions and be involved in the process. And they want to pick the paint colors and the cabinets and all this type of stuff. Then at the very end, they're nitpicking you. Well, what's this fee? What's this expense? What's this? What's this? And then all of a sudden they're like, well, I'm unhappy, even though you've done everything for me. Mm-hmm. It's just, you're adding friction to the deal that doesn't necessarily need to be there. There is a time and a place for this, but it has to be the right seller in the right situation. But 99% of the time, I would say you either need to cash them out from the very beginning or do some sort of novation if you want to partner with them per se. Bobby, yeah. Do you agree? Have any?
No, my percentage is a little different. I would say you said 99%. I would say 99.3% of the time, it's hard to be in the deal. And I think you articulated most of this. Here's the challenge, TC, that I see. There's a condition called sellernesia. They are wonderful up front to work with. You reinstate their loan. I have half a dozen homes right now that have, that we've worked with sellers. So I don't think Michael and I are saying don't do it, but man, buyer beware, holy cow, because they forget the sellernesia kicks in at the very end, and then they start taking advantage of your generosity. I just got a text from a lady I bought a home from, and she's just like, hey, can't make payment this month, so I'll catch up with you in January, just use my last months to apply for this month. And I'm going, I'm not a mathlete. I'm not a mathematician, but that doesn't add up for me. You can't just skip your payments. And it's somebody, when you rent to people, it's better to negotiate up front and work an equitable deal for their exit than to keep them as part of the deal. The novations, I know Pace hates the novations. Not a big fan because it always seems to come back and bite you in the butt. They do take advantage of your generosity as big of challenge and a problem they have. And as much as we solve that problem, we wire that $10, $20, $30, $50, $75,000 to reinstate, and they're freaking out. You're their biggest hero. And then all of a sudden you become a zero, at the end, where they're saying, wow, you're taking my equity. And we're saying, whoa. Do you remember up front, we're paying you cash. We're doing this. We're rehabbing your home. there's been homes I've been into, $80,000, $100,000, and all of a sudden they change their tone. So you've got to have good legal representation, number one, and good street smarts and experience if you're going to be that 1% to go through it. Now, once you've done 10, 15, 20, 50 deals, yes, involve the homeowners. It'll open up your opportunity, and deal flow for sure. But just know that most of the time, I agree 100% actually with Michael, that it doesn't typically end well unless you've got a rock star seller.
And sometimes keeping people in the home or JVing with the seller, sometimes it can be a cop-out for poor sales skills.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe you don't understand how to overcome their objections or paint the picture for them or guide them through what they need to be guided through. Sometimes it's easy to just be like, oh, well, yeah, you can stay in the home and we'll just figure it out later. Or, yeah, we can partner on the deal, because that's the easy thing to say. But then you're writing up that contract. You're not establishing expectations up front. You're not really laying it out in a bulleted list like this is what to expect. You're just trying to get that contract under contract, or that house under contract. And then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, a few weeks later, expectations weren't set. And then all of a sudden you have problems. So again, this is a ninja strategy. I would definitely recommend, like Bobby said, hit 20, 30, 50 deals under contract. And even then, it's not necessarily a good idea. Ask me how I know. The cash conversion cycle goes way up, right? And you might have a ton of equity in these houses, but there's people living in there. People aren't doing what they say. The cost of repairs are going way through the roof. And then you have, a lack of cash in your company bank account because, a bunch of cash is going in. It's not going out. So just be aware, be very careful. Sometimes I tend to think that it's just a sales issue more than anything going that direction.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting. Most people, I want you to put in the side chat, I'm going to ask the question to the group, but when you ask a homeowner, hey, tell me how you got here. Tell me about the situation. What are your goals? What are your objectives? Where do you want to end up? I mean, there's a myriad of questions that you can ask. Most of them will say, I want to stay in the home, right? So when you go into a store, everybody on the call, you go into a clothing store, bike shop, wherever, and the salesperson asks you the question, can I help you find something today? How do you respond? How do we as humans naturally respond to that?
When they say, what are you looking for?
Yeah. Can I help you find something today, Michael, Frankie? No, I'm just looking. Yeah, no, I'm just looking. When in your mind, I'm just looking. Again, Ronald said it. We're just looking. It's hilarious. My son works at the bike shop. I said, don't ever. We're a big biking family. We bike a lot. I said, when somebody comes in the store, don't ever ask them, hey, can I help you find something? Because their response is going to be, no, I'm just looking. Just like the homeowner, I want to stay in my home. You've got to present to them, hey, welcome to the bike shop. Are you a road biker or a mountain biker? Mountain biker. Cool. You looking at new bikes today, or are you looking to get something fixed? I said, start asking them questions that don't elicit that response. No, I'm just looking. And it's the same thing with a homeowner. Michael hit the nail on the head there. When they want to stay in the home, it's not that they're saying no to you. It's just you haven't given them enough information to say yes. That's what I find. So let's talk about their goals and objections. And yeah, we want to stay in the home, and say, cool, we're going to work toward that. Let's go through a list of things that may, maybe options available to you. But then you've got to follow up with those questions. Let's look at a plan B. Let's look at a plan C. If you were to move out, if you were to have a bag of cash plopped in front of you right now, does that change anything? And I 100% of the time, for me, I'll find people go, okay, now we're talking, let's talk about that. And all of a sudden I want to stay in the home. They're totally open to taking some money and moving. Sometimes money talks. So that's very, very interesting sales skill that I've learned. And I think everybody needs to learn, is having that conversation with the homeowner. So any thoughts, Michael, before we go through this list again? I'll jump back in.
As much as we would like for people to roll out the red carpet, they just don't. We would love to knock on the door and they just be like, yes, please come in. I will sign this 50% off paper for you. Yes, please. You're going to have to be able to push through that resistance, right? I actually talked to one of my niche student sellers down in Jacksonville. the other day.
Mhm.
Kind of a hoarder house, cat poop house. Situation was homeowner, female, a little bit older, lived there. Her daughter lived there. And she just kept telling my student, I'm going to figure it out. I'm just going to wait, all these types of things. And the student couldn't figure it out. Like a lot of times they say that and it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll connect with you here in a few weeks and it'll be fine. Because they're asking the same questions. Like Bobby, I love the bike example. It's like, well, what are you looking for? No, I'm fine. But he's like, do you want road bike or do you want, whatever repair? And it's like, you just got to start asking some questions. So I dug deep into this lady, and she finally got to the point where she admitted, I actually want to sell. My daughter is manipulating me and has lived here for free for years and is really putting a lot of pressure on me to just let her stay and just kind of ride out the foreclosure process. Honestly, Michael, if it were up to me, I would sell right now. I want to move into an apartment. I want to have a years of living expenses. And I was able to get her from saying, hey, I just want to wait. I'm just going to figure it out, to divulging her entire plan by just a few strategic questions. And that's all the sales process is. It's just asking some pointed questions and listening. And then when they reveal themselves, being able to solve that problem for them. So again, the difference between a deal and not a deal is very small. And it's just, being around a group of people practicing these things, overcoming these objections, having the right data, like all these things together, and you're getting deals all of a sudden.
I agree. And again, I don't think people want to say no. They just don't have enough information to say yes.
Correct.
So when we go through this process, again, you're grabbing data, you're identifying, okay, we have a pre-foreclosure situation. We make contact with the homeowner. You've kind of talked about whether it's a door knock, whether it's, a call, what now. There's a couple things that are happening simultaneously, and it's underwriting the deal, making sure there's equity. It's negotiating the terms with the seller. And I don't do that first. I want to understand the why. How did we get to this situation? And then we can talk about putting it under contract. And the question, Michael, I think a lot of people ask, do I need to have money to do a deal? Does that preclude me or exclude me from doing a real estate transaction? If I don't have a penny to my name, I'm here learning, I'm new.
One of the biggest problems that prevents people from taking action is thinking that you need to be an expert, thinking that you need to know what to say, thinking that you need to know how to solve the problem, thinking you have to have the money. That keeps you on the sideline. I don't want you sitting in the stands at the football game. I want you on the field playing. That's the only way you're going to get better. So when I did my first foreclosure deal, no money in the bank account. All I had was legs to walk to a door, an arm to knock on it, and a mouth to talk. And I ended up making $50,000. So guys, you don't have to have a ton of experience. You have to have none, but you just have to go through the process, establish what the problems are, be willing to listen to that person and empathetic and solve their problem, but then bring in the experienced buyers. Go find the title company, go find the probate attorney, but you got to be willing to put yourself out there, or you're going to keep being on the sideline, wondering how all the people on the playing field are the ones that are getting paid. Well, they're playing the game. If you're not playing the game, you're not getting paid.
Yeah, you said something key, listening. And I love God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and He expects us to use those proportionately. When we're dealing with these homeowners, you can learn a lot about an individual by just sitting and listening and asking key questions. So listen, ask those key questions. There's a couple deals that we did that were interesting. One was a recent property. Again, we want to stay in the home. We want to stay in the home. We want to stay in the home. Awesome. Let's work toward that. But as far as a plan B, plan C, if we were to come in and we asked some strategic questions as we were doing the underwriting of the property and the analyzation of the deal, we started to discover solar. Okay, they've got a solar debt, $25K. It's like, HVAC. They said, hey, we just put a new HVAC on a credit card. I'm like, oh, is that on a lien? Have they liened the property, or is it just a credit card debt? homeowner wanted cash, and he had this big exorbitant amount he wanted, and there was a lot of equity. And we were able to break down what their needs were, how we can take this problem and solve it, have a very crucial conversation. The daughter, husband were living in the home. They were about ready to bail. Dad doesn't have a job. And so we talked about that plan B. Michael always says, hey, what's your plan B? Well, here's a plan B option. If that doesn't work out, if you don't win the lottery, that scratch off doesn't work for you, and you're not able to just pay cash for this home, let's look at some plan Bs. If we were to get you some money and we were able to take the burden of the solar debt that is going to follow you, the HVAC debt that we found out they put on a credit card, if it goes to sale, you get nothing. You get goose egg. So we were actually able to resolve all of those issues and pay less to that individual and pay off those debts. And they've already moved out. So now we're looking at just a quick clean out. We've already got it wholesaled to somebody else. But there are ways to put deals together. It's just finding somebody that has a little more experience or expertise, and sometimes solving those problems. We did one in Vegas recently. She had a bad back. Okay, well, somebody has a bad back, doesn't have the ability to move. There's a hurdle. How do I overcome that hurdle? I'm going to pay for what if I paid for your move? Would that be helpful for you? Are you serious? Would you do that? It cost me $4,000. Well, actually $4,400 is what the moving company charged me to pile the boxes all the way to the ceiling in the next apartment. I paid the down payment on the deposit on that apartment, a storage unit. I mean, and you never want to put those things on your credit card where it's recurring monthly. Be very smart how you do that. I'm giving you a warning. But my point is, what was a non negotiable, we just need to stay in the home. We don't have any options. As you start to explore, you start to solve a problem with them. You make money by taking a problem and solving a problem. So that's one of the
a good point there of having two ears and one mouth. A lot of people think that sales is like smooth talking and you're like tricking someone into something. Sales in the modern era is the ability to listen and the ability to ask key questions, right? In the chat, I would like you to guess the percentage of the time that I should be talking at one of these appointments. Me, the investor. What do you guys think in the chat? The percentage of the time that I should be talking to have a good appointment.
27.9.
Don't leave me. Don't make me lonely. I hate being lonely. 20%, 10%, 10%, 20%. Man, these guys are smart. 20%. Man, did I like telepathically tell everyone, or are they just so smart from watching our content? Maybe Bobby taught them all before the Zoom. 20% is about where I like to be. If I'm dominating the conversation, I'm not doing a good job. You know my telltale sign of a great conversation with a seller in foreclosure? It gets to the very end, right? They've poured their soul out. I've asked some questions. I've solved some problems. At the very end of the conversation, they're like, what was your name again? Because it was all about them. It was nothing about me, right? And it's just truly funny how often that happens is, what was your name again? What company did you work for? Yeah, we're going to work together. It's just so funny. But yeah, you guys hit it right on the head, right about 20%.
You need to start saying Michael Jordan. They'll remember that. Had a couple questions in the side chat I want to throw at you. And I'm so sad that I don't have the controls. This is Caroline's, YouTube channel. I wish I had the control to bring you on, but Leo and Evan. So let's start with Evan. So he says, I'm struggling to get in the door or in front of more sellers. Current KPIs, 50 to 100 hand dial texts, 20 to 50 door knocks per week. Deal flow has been dry for about 5 months. Not sure how to create more deal flow. So what would you suggest? I mean, I don't know the quality of the data. I don't, Evan, where are you getting the data and how efficient your texts are? But Michael, what would you add to that?
I would like to see the actual tracking of the amount of activity you're doing. A lot of times people project more activity than they're actually doing. Like you say, you're doing 40 or 50 a week, all these calls, different things. Are you actually tracking that? That's what I would like to know, because generally, you hit 100 doors, 150 doors, you're at least going to have a phenomenal opportunity. You make a few hundred calls, you're going to have an opportunity. But if you're not converting, there's probably an issue with the actual amount of activity you're doing, or the sales process is a struggle, or you don't even know a deal when it's looking at you in the face. Lastly, the ability to prepare before an appointment is critical. If someone just says, hey, I want you to come over to my house and talk about it, that's in foreclosure, the average investor is just going to show up. They're not going to do any pre-work, and that's going to kill your conversion rate. So I made a YouTube video about this the other day. It didn't get that many views, and it's really kind of a shame because it's super important. The ability to prepare before an appointment. So what are you going to be able to do? One, you need to have a very good first conversation in terms of knowing that situation, what liens are going to pop up, what problems they have, the condition of the house, etc. You need to have a very good understanding of that property. Okay. Then after that, hey, we're going to go look at the ARV of this property. What would it be worth fixed up? Likewise, what would it be worth as it sits? I love wholesales, right? I hate flipping houses. If I don't have to, I'm not going to. But what is it worth as it sits? Then based on their description of what the house was like condition-wise, what I've looked up, I can generally have a fairly solid number of what I'm going to be able to pay for the house. If I have that number in my head before I go, do I have to think about it while I'm there? No. I'm 100% focused on the seller solving their problem, but I don't stop there. I'm going to go find 4 or 5 different of my best buyers, people that I can really trust. They're not going to snake the deal from me, and say, hey, look, Mr. Buyer, I've done tons of deals with. Here's the condition of the house based on what the seller said. Here's the ARV that I'm seeing. Here's the as-is value that I'm seeing. Knowing what I've given you, give me a range of what you could do for the house. They'll say whatever number that they can say. And maybe that number is north of what you said. Well, then you can get to the appointment. And maybe instead of feeling uncomfortable and locking up a deal because you're afraid it's too high, it's like, I've done all this legwork on knowing what I can pay, what other people can pay, and it oftentimes can lead to more deals. So it's a combination of a lot of those things. Maybe you have some more to add to that, Bobby.
Well, I wrote down wholesale. You mentioned that term. Why don't you tell the group what wholesale is for those that are new or don't understand that term? It's a combination of 2 different processes.
Mm-hmm. So in my business, I like to shorten my cash conversion cycle to be as short as possible. So of course I want to wholesale something. Wholesale just means I got it under contract. I find an end buyer. They sign an assignment agreement that says that they can take over the responsibility of fulfilling on my agreement, right? But sometimes those aren't available, right? You're not going to be able to do it. Maybe the timeline's too short, whatever the factors might be. Well, my next strategy would be doing a wholesale. Wholesale just means I purchase the house, right? And then I'm trying to quickly sell it in some manner. Maybe I'm cleaning it out and throwing it back on the MLS. Maybe I'm selling it to another investor shortly thereafter. It's just a way of making some money in a little bit quicker manner to where you're not having to go through the process of fixing and flipping a property.
Okay. Shifting gears a little bit, Leo mentioned, I know you guys said data is king, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how accurate is Zillow data? And I would say this: no data, no deal. I did a deal earlier in the year. It took me 2 months and I made 80 grand was the profit on it. It was a great deal, but data is so hard. Well, it's not that data is hard to find, but it can be hard to find if you don't have all the systems and processes. And I pulled up the county website, found the notice of defaults, found the one that was local. Who's the individual? And then I Googled and got lucky. Data is what is always the struggle. And I think that's the advantage Niche has, is they have a database. They have skip traced data. Zillow is a little dated, and it's not going to give you all the personal information, friends, family, parents, siblings, all those numbers. So that's one of the challenges. But Michael, as you've looked at Zillow data and compared it to some of the other sites, what are you finding?
I've done a lot of the testing of Zillow data, Property Radar, Foreclosures Daily, PropStream, all these different sources out there that have data. And many times they are 2, 3, 4 months behind. Can you still get deals from that? Of course. But your deal pool is going to be shortened or diminished significantly because people like me, people like Bobby, people like Caroline, or people in the niche community are getting there the day that things come out, right? Does it necessarily mean that you're there first, that you're going to get the deal? Not always. But the earlier you're there, the more intel you can gather, and the earlier you can get there and provide value for the seller. I actually had a student the other day. I was doing a one-on-one with him, and he'd been doing foreclosures for a while, but had been getting his data from PropStream, right? So he'd go to these houses when it would come out at PropStream, and the sellers were consistently, I already signed a contract with someone else, or maybe the foreclosure already happened, or they solved it months ago. And he's like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Well, he joined our community, and he actually queued up this perfect ad for me. I couldn't have asked it to be any better. He's like, Michael, I started using your data, and I was getting to houses day one. I had a bunch of friends, other wholesalers in the area that were like, Eric, how are you getting there so much sooner? Because he's getting a couple of deals a week now. And he's like, well, they don't know that my data is getting there weeks and weeks ahead of them, and I'm beating them to the punch. So we've been, paranoid about having the best data out there, the quickest that you can get it. We're providing it to you. But again, guys, think about all the situations that data is important. A lot of these other sites, they're just providing you an address, 123 Main Street, foreclosure, whenever. You're going out there, but you have no information about it. We've taken it to the next level to where it's like we're giving you the all the skip trace phone numbers, all the verified emails, any alternate addresses that they might live at. But we're also giving you all of their relatives. So imagine you find that vacant house, that person that passed away, and it's like, well, who do I need to talk to? It's like, well, I have all the heirs, all the brothers, the sisters, the aunts, the uncles, all their phone numbers, all their addresses, all their emails. Imagine how much power you would have having all that information just at your fingertips when you show up for work.
Yeah, well, it makes it a lot easier. You spend less time, spinning your wheels and looking for deals, and more time actually working, on the business, making calls and trying to negotiate, those deals. So that's interesting. And I know Caroline, she has a different process, and she's paid the VAs. They go scrub in her area, and she's gotten really good at, with what she's done. And then she gives data out to people, and they make phone calls. Now, Caroline's looking at some of the data that Michael's providing, and going to be utilizing that in a more meaningful way. So that's exciting. So currently getting, let's see. So Ken had a comment here. What do I do if I live an hour outside the major metro area and cannot door knock? How do you get on the phone with the homeowner, or how do you get them on the phone? I can't get people on the phone. So I will say I've done deals probably in the last 3-4 months in California, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida. I've never been to any of these places. I haven't knocked on a door. So it is possible to do deals remotely. You just have to be good at number one, understanding the underwriting, but you also have to have good data, and contacting people. It's paramount that you are able to talk to the person. I hear all the time, hey, this is the person on the loan, and this is the person on title. Well, you're not going to be able to talk to the person on the loan, the bank, if you're working with a person that's on title. So there's a process, and there's some education and learning. And to that, I would say reach out to somebody that knows a little bit more than you, and see how you can get them on the phone, get some coaching, get some, get some more knowledge on how to navigate that, because people are doing and buying and tying up deals all day, every day, that are out of state. I mean, is that your experience, Michael? People with your data are able to just make phone calls? And I know door knocking is a big thing, but there's a different way to do it.
100%. Yeah, there's people that are doing virtual all over the country, but just because you're out in the sticks doesn't mean that people don't go through foreclosures out in the sticks as well. So don't underestimate the power of doing the work on deals that no one else is willing to do. So like some of the best deals I've ever done were out in the sticks. Other people weren't willing to go out and door knock them. Other people didn't want to mess with them. I bought a house in Fontana, Kansas, like 90 minutes outside of Kansas City, middle of nowhere, right? This house was a 20-acre house, had a nice mobile home on it, a modular home actually. It was probably worth like $330 is what we sold it for. I was able to buy it for $60K, right? Because my guy went out there, did the work, drove 90 minutes away, door knocked this house. There was actually a sticky note on the back door. Conveniently, it was a sticky note, but not from another investor. It was actually from the homeowner that was like, if you need anything, just give me a call. Well, he happened to live in town, right? So we drove to that house, door knocked it, had a conversation. He's like, yeah, my father passed away. Didn't have any idea how to deal with the probate. Crazy situation. I just kind of gave up on it, to be honest. So we ended up helping him out with the probate, paying him for that, or paying for the probate. He owed about 20 grand on the house. Ended up getting him 40 grand in his pocket. House was a wreck. We ended up putting probably 75 or 80 into it, but ended up making north of 6 figures on the deal, all because we went out to a house that no one else would have thought would be worth the time out in the sticks. So there's two different things here. Bobby said, hey, you can do houses virtually. You can go anywhere in the United States with niche data. I have it in all counties of the United States. Or maybe you're in the sticks and you underestimate the houses around you that might be going into foreclosure that no one else wants to mess with. So I actually see that as an advantage, whereas you see it as a disadvantage.
I do too. And, there's a saying, there's many ways to skin a cat. I've never skinned a cat. I want to qualify, but they say there's many ways to do that. There's many ways to do this business. Matter of fact, that reminds me of a funny saying, Michael. Back in the old days, they used to say you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Well, PETA came out and they wanted to change that because it's violent. So it's feed 2 birds with 1 scone. Is
that, Bobby?
It's the politically correct way. So I shouldn't have said we're skinning cats because we're not. There are many ways to do a deal. Is the way to look at it. And really, if you're somebody that is in the remote area, there is a buyer for a home anywhere. Yes. What's the medium? It's price. Everything sells for a price. If you sell me a home in Timbuktu and it's pennies on the dollar, I'm going to buy it. I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's in the middle of Timbuktu, because somebody can afford that home in Timbuktu.
Unless it's a Victorian home. I'm not buying it for any money.
Unless it's that area. A knob and tube wiring usually accompanies the Victorian home. Okay, so a couple more questions. So Rob, Tools and Tech, had the question, Michael, where are you at in getting through apps for the niche community?
So we're doing a lot better on that now. We have a couple of sales guys that are taking those. For a long time, I was doing it, so I apologize for kind of the backlog of folks. I'm only one guy, but we have some sales guys, and we do have a way to join now to where you don't have to talk to anyone. So happy to chat about that later in the call.
Okay. Alan, so how much effort in your business should you put into PPC and ads? Are there more people Googling pre-foreclosures, helping out there, asking from Southern California? So I'll comment on this first, and I'll turn it over to you, Michael. Beginning of the year, I was paying about $3,000 a month in just Facebook ads. And there's things you can and can't say on Facebook, relative to pre-foreclosures, but it was a company that was doing it for me. But they were generating a lot of traffic. Some was tire kickers, wanted us to comp their home for free, and others was legit. People, I ended up buying a home in a gated community in California that had a lot of equity, about 150,000 equity, and he was on his way out. And so there are different ways. I don't do a lot of the PPC stuff. Google has gotten really expensive, but I know the leads are far more quality on those Google ads. You're anywhere from $500 to $700 a lead, but the quality of that is a lot higher than it is on Facebook. So, for what it's worth, there's my experience.
So what I can tell you is what's happened over the last few years with those type of leads. So a lot of you have experience with PPC, pay per lead, direct mail, TV, any of these things. I've tried them all. They all work. They definitely do. But used to, I could get, a 10 to 12x return on all of those lead sources, which was phenomenal. Like if you can get that type of return, how many times can we do it? But over the last few years, that's gotten more mainstream in terms of everyone has a PPC provider. Everyone has the PPL, sites bookmarked now. Television, there's less people watching TV. All these different things. My ROI on those channels has dwindled down to 3 to 4x, which, yeah, if it's reliable, sure, why not do it? But it's not as exciting, especially when you have to spend the amount of money we do to buy these houses and renovate them and such. And that's why I've been consistent with direct to motivation, because those leads don't cost much. If you have the right data, you have the right sales process, you have the right power team around you, I can literally go door knock a house or cold call a house or text a house because I know where to look and generate a lead for relatively free. That can be a very large outsized return, to where our ROI on niche list is more than 50x what we put into it. So it's the channel that makes me the most per deal. And it's also my biggest ROI. So that's why I focus on it.
Yeah. Here's a couple comments. Rob chimed in on the Zillow thing just going back, and he said, watch out. I was looking up some stuff, and they found they had a sell price half of what I paid for it. And I found that with some of the homes we bought. You buy them at a discount, and all of a sudden Zillow drops it. I'm like, where are they getting this? Because title companies didn't used to report to these third parties. So they may be going out and scraping, web crawl technology. There might be a lot of ways they're getting the data, but super annoying because it does devalue your home if you have people looking at that for the next, sale. So here's a question. So nobody bigger. This is one that I think is very interesting. So how often do you run into a situation where debt exceeds the current as-is value of a property? And what are the options for getting the deal and helping someone in this type of situation? So that is a loaded question. And I wish I had a little whiteboard. I did this back in the late 1900s where there was a second mortgage and you create equity by buying that at a discount. And I've helped Caroline and her team do that before. $50,000 note, $5,000. So you've got to be careful. But when you look at a situation, when you see the first is foreclosing and the second is, they are going to be wiped off depending on what it is. If it's a federal tax lien or something like that, again, it's going to stay. But for the most part, when there's seconds, thirds, I have bought properties with seconds, thirds, and fourth mortgages. Some are private loans in the fourth position. But we had a recent deal we picked up in Florida. It's ARV. So ARV is after repair value or retail value of the property in good condition was about $400,000. And a new student brought that to me, was a real estate agent, didn't really know a lot about how to tie properties up, but I got on the phone with the homeowner and I learned something very quickly. The home used to be, for the most part, free and clear. There was a small lien of $50,000 that was a first, and a second, there was a judgment of $500,000. Now you look at the math and you think, okay, $550,000, homes were $400,000, punt. I look at it differently. When I saw that home was an attorney, an insurance company, they're a debt collector, they're trying to collect on a debt, which means they'll negotiate. You just have to know how to manhandle them, how to talk to attorneys. So we were able to, long story short, create equity in that deal. I paid $203,000 cash for that property. We have some on this call that actually helped fund that deal. Which is kind of fun to bring some new students in and let them watch from the front row this game that's going on. But we were able to do that. And then I negotiated the first $50,000 that was, a lien on there that they had never paid on. Got that one for $2,500. So we have a lot of equity in this property. So your question is, if debt exceeds the current value, what are the options? It depends on who's foreclosing. Is it the first or the second position? And maybe Michael, I don't know if you want to give a quick mini lesson. If the second is foreclosing, let's say there's a first of $100,000, a second of 50,000. Walk us through that scenario. The second is foreclosing, and you might go to a sale thinking there's a sale and they're selling the house for $50,000. That's not the case. So what happens there?
That's why I've been leery to buy at the courthouse over the years, because unless you have a vetted title search and can pull all the information, it's like, hey, no one showed up to the sale and there's a $400,000 house and I got it for $54,000. Woo! And then you don't realize
smart guy. I'm the only smart guy in the room.
And then you don't realize that there's a $300,000 first, and it's like, oh no, I actually paid $350,000 for this house. So those situations, you got to be really careful. And part of your due diligence when you're talking to these sellers is, hey, we of course see your first mortgage that's in foreclosure. Do you have any second mortgages? Well, no. Well, have you ever been behind on your house before? Have you ever had any type of government assistance? Well, yeah, HUD did give me $40,000 once to catch it up. Oh, there's a partial claim then. So it's part of our sales process is to see some of those deal killers. It's like, well, do you happen to have, you said you were divorced from your wife. Are you caught up on your child support? No, I actually am about $12,000 behind. So it's so good to ask these questions up front. That way we can be proactive on doing it instead of finding out at the last second. It was actually a deal and Bobby and I were doing together out in Utah. It looked like it was a phenomenal deal. They owed about $230 on it. It was about $400,000 house, if I recall right. And at the very last second, they're like, oh yeah, there's about $100,000 extra and different liens and partial claims, et cetera. And it's like, oh, we didn't do a good enough job on the front end, kind of fleshing out some of those issues.
The hard part, I was working with the student that he said, hey, this is in your backyard. Can you help the student out? And the student was frustrated, that a deal's falling apart. And I said, look, let's call the bank. Let's get him on the phone. And I actually knew I had just purchased a note with this same individual. And I'm like, Amy, this is Bobby. How are you doing? It's me again. I'm an accredited investor. I'm good for it. Can we postpone the sale? Because the sale was the next day. Mm-hmm. And she's like, you know what? We've dealt with this homeowner over and over and over, and we're tired. We can't do this again. I'm like, can I call in a favor? And, I wasn't willing to push it. Typically in that scenario, we would do two contracts. One's a sub 2 and one's a cash contract. So we send the cash contract to the bank, show proof of funds, and that will typically delay the sale or the trustee sale from happening. But they were in a position, and I wasn't about ready to put my reputation on the line to string them along, knowing that we may not reinstate. But the reinstatement amount, the partial claim, I mean, that deal that I made 80 on, I would have made 130 on, but there was a $50,000 partial claim that they didn't tell me about. And so when we had title, pull the preliminary title report, identify that, it was until closing that we saw, and they were like, what is this partial claim? The title company really didn't even know what it was. But I went back to the homeowner and I said, hey, I'm sorry, but I get your stainless fridge and your washer and dryer, and I'll take on that debt for $50,000, the most expensive washer and dryer and fridge I've ever purchased in my life, but we'll still help you. And they were just like, done. So very expensive. We still made good money on the deal. They still made money. They were able to move out, get rid of a lot of debt, bankruptcy situation. You'll find the psychology of these individuals. You want to ask the question, why didn't you list the property like 3 months ago? Because they're in denial. They're in a situation thinking something's going to change. It's a personality type. And oftentimes they'll wait until the last minute. Their options used to be 15, and now their options are 5. And then a week before the sale, their options are 3. And then, a couple of days before this sale, they don't really have a lot of options. And you have to paint that picture and say, look, the sheriff, I've seen this happen. They're going to show up next week and they are going to evict you. And it's a very robotic, unemotional process that's going to happen. I want to help you. Let's stop this. If I can take on all that debt and free you from that, and we're going to continue making payments on your first mortgage, build your credit back up, this is an opportunity for you to hit the reset button. Is that something that sounds equitable for you? I'm in this to make money, obviously, but I'm here to bail you out. And I was into that property about $78,000. So I got all my money back, and then I made another $80,000. And it took me, 2 weeks. I probably should have kept it and rented it because it was like a 2.75, $1,100 mortgage. Could have rented it for $2,000, but it was just like, I want to get in, get out, get in, move on to the next one, So let's go to, we're almost at the top of the hour. Let's finish up with a couple more questions, Michael. We've got one that says, Michael, what would you say, is texting a lot cheaper than running ads? I think so, but I haven't looked into it. What would your thought be there on the texting approach?
I mean, sure, texting is going to be more cheap than running ads, but there's a lot of cat and mouse games you have to play with texting right now. I remember the heyday of texting, 2019, 2018, to where there were no rules. I could just upload a list and I would just click the space bar as fast as I could to get all these things out. 100% deliverability rate, no opt-out messages, no carriers killing you. But now you have to deal with, spammed phone numbers, carriers blocking you, opt-out messages. You end up having to send a lot of text messages and put a lot of effort in, and then you have more people doing it. So the barrier to entry is very low, meaning there's more people doing it. So if you're just texting broad list, you can make money, but it's more of a difficult go than it was a handful of years ago.
Okay. So comment, we kind of answered this. Jesse Lee said, what if it's not foreclosing, but there's a second and third mortgage? Can we still negotiate those? Typically what puts pressure on a second or third is a trustee sale happening. That's the reality. If there's no, catastrophic event coming, they're not really going to negotiate with you. They borrowed the money. They view it as, hey, you borrowed the money, you owe us the money. But when you can say, hey, second, there's a trustee sale coming up next week. We want to get you some money. And typically it's already in collection, or they've been notified as a junior lien holder that there is a trustee sale coming up. Banks are in the performing note business, not the non-performing note business. So they want that off their books. They can write that off. They can get rid of it and move on. So typically you want that primary lien holder foreclosing, and then they're up to negotiate. And they'll start with a higher amount, put in your bid, and you start low, and it's just a negotiating back and forth. And I say flat out, I would love to pay you full price for the note. We can't afford to pay that. There's not enough equity in the home. We need to do some renovation. There's some roof issues. We think there's some leaking. There might be some termites. There might be, and you sow those seeds of doubt. What you never say is, I can't pay that much because I'm going to give the homeowner a bunch of money. They're going to say, no, sorry, done deal. The homeowner's not getting any money. We are a debt collector. Our goal is to collect a debt. So you want to be careful there. So we have the question, Michael, what tools do you suggest we use to get those deals? Where do we get the data? That's an easy one for you to answer, I think. You're eating your own dog food and you're making money using your own data, which is key.
Yeah, guys, for the longest time, I pulled my own data, and I dreamed of the day that I would be able to automate it, not just for myself, but for everyone, because I've been sharing for years, I've been doing these deals and this is what I'm doing to help these sellers in foreclosure. And everyone's like, I want to know more. Well, the first barrier to entry is like, oh my gosh, this data, it's such a pain in the rear to pull. And there's so many different sources. Well, guys, we've automated that to where every single day we're going to any of those county sites you can imagine, any auction site, any trustee site, attorney site. We're gathering all of those every day, cleaning it, skip tracing it, giving you all the relatives and the contact information for everyone, and updating them. So it's like, oh, the sale got canceled. You'll know. Hey, the opening bid or the judgment came out. These things. And that way you don't focus on data. You just have it go to a portal for you. You can then start taking action on it. It's like, stop doing the $10 an hour tasks. Do the $1,000 an hour tasks. That's where Bobby and Caroline and I like to live. So yeah. Niche data can do that for you without a doubt. Yeah.
And I would say this, just going back sometime, I started going to trustee sales. That's where I'd show up and I had my check and I was so excited to bid on a property, early 2000s, and quickly realized deals were, the attorney, I remember Lundberg and Associates was the guy's name. And he's like, this has been canceled. And I'm like, I've been waiting here for 30 minutes and you just canceled the sale. What happened? I don't know. They reinstated or it's been sold. And I kept wondering, how is this happening? What we're telling you is you now can be so sophisticated with the data and doing pre-foreclosures. You're catching it weeks, months before it even hits the sale. You're the one canceling the sale. You're the one reinstating so that it doesn't go to sell. So you need to learn that skill set. There's so much money to be made. There's so many people that can be helped in this process of doing the pre-foreclosures, but data is king. No data, no deal. If you don't have that data and good data, it's really hard to put a deal together. And I will say, even a blind squirrel finds a nut. We get students bringing us deals all the time that say, I just joined and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I found this person and they're willing to talk to me. They just cried on the phone with me and I connected. And, one guy said they were both vets. And I'm like, does that mean you've done sub 2 for a long time? He's like, no, we're veterans. So not veterinarians, but we're veterans, armed forces. So they had a bond. I couldn't forge that bond. So he's working a deal right now. This is one of Michael's students that said, hey, can you help me out? I said, yeah, let's get on the phone with him. So today at 4, we're going to chat with him and see what we can work out and maybe walk him through his first deal. So any other thoughts, Michael? I'm trying to read through any other
questions on here.
Let's see. So respectfully, the ones that don't have 2 pennies to rub together, what's the best tools and route to get those prospects first and be there first? So I already shared, Jessica Lee, this is how aggressive I'm going to get with you. This is my aggressive face right here. Michael and I told you don't need money to do it. Yeah, I mean, Caroline has, people that can fund. I have people that can fund. Michael has people that can fund. If you need a JV with someone, finding the money is not the hard part. It's finding the deal, talking to a homeowner. And sometimes it takes a lot of calls. Victor is a classic example. That dude, holy crap. If I'm ever in, what do they call that? A gladiator fight. I want him on my team because that dude can take a beating for a year and a half and keep showing up and keep standing up. It's like, hit me again. I'm a little more sensitive where I don't want to,
I did hear he's starring in Gladiator 2 coming up here.
Yes, he is. So you got to keep showing up. But what I would say, if you don't have 2 nickels rubbed together, get data. Caroline's giving data away for free. Michael actually has a database that you can sign up for. And they're doing some things before Thanksgiving where you can get a discount. You go to Niche Data and you can join their community. I mean, data, once you start calling the data, you very quickly see, okay, it's actually kind of fun talking to homeowners, hearing their stories, figuring out a problem, underwriting the deal, but partner with some people if you have to. So I think it's Jesus. You know what's funny? So Jesus, he said, I've gone through some of the houses and the owners have passed. So I think my license plate, it says, I love Jesus. I know.
Just for you, man.
Yeah, I've got a license plate just for you, brother, unless your name's Jesus. So what
would Jesus do, man?
Yeah, what would Jesus do? He said, I've gone to some houses and the owner passed away, leaving no trust or anything. What can I do after that? So this is kind of a probate situation. Do they have children? Who are their heirs? Is it in foreclosure? I have so many questions, that I would ask. Jump on and ask, or at least find out more information. Give us an address. Give us we can look it up. Matter of fact, one of these calls, Michael, I know you do lives. It would be so fun to actually pick up the phone and talk to the homeowners to show you guys how to do this. And we do this all the time. Or talk to the bank. And I think once you do this, Lindsay did this, and she's a master now at talking to the bank. She jumped on a couple calls with me and spoke with the homeowners, and now, literally within a couple of weeks, she's a Jedi and she's out doing her own thing. She's taking data, looking it up. She's part of the niche community. She works with Caroline. So you just got to get out there and hustle. And to say it doesn't take money to get into this business, it takes time, right? You've got to have sacrifice that time aspect of it, but you can partner up with people. that have experience. There's a lot of people that I know hate making phone calls. If you're willing to make phone calls, they'll give you the data, and you can start making phone calls and getting your reps in that way. So Odette said, I'd love to attend the workshop.
That deal that you're looking at, that's a gold mine right there. A vacant house where someone has passed away. For some reason, the family hasn't done anything with it because there's a problem. That's why having the data is important. We're not just guiding you to that house that's vacant and someone's passed away. We're giving you all of the relatives' home information, all of their addresses, contact information. So guys, we've thought through this clearly to where it's like every obstacle that you're going to come up against with your data, we have a solution for that to, I always say reduce the friction of doing a real estate deal.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Less friction. So there's the address. Any other questions? We've been on the phone 1:10. I want to respect your time. I want to respect Michael's time. Any final questions? And again, apologies for those that joined late. Caroline is not well. Send your well wishes to her. Post in the chats. She always likes to say, if you find value, post. I don't have social media, so I don't care if you post about me or not. But it's always nice to have Michael. He's an expert in the field. He's done 600 plus deals. He knows a thing or two. I've talked to banks. I wrote a book on pre-foreclosures back in the day, and so I've done quite a few. Our goal is to help you, and Caroline's done a phenomenal job in the community and teeing up a group and spending a lot of her time. I know why she's sick, because she's up at 4 or 5 a.m. doing these free Zooms for everybody. So bless her heart, she needs to get some rest. But send her some love, and any final questions that anybody has, or a deal that they would love us to analyze. I mean, Michael, I could look up that address real quick if we want to do the deal. Let's do that real quick. So Jesus just sent us this property. Matter of fact, we could look it up, see if it's in your database, and make a call if we wanted to. But I'm going to look it up real quick in PropStream.
Moon Knight, I think you got caught on daylight savings time. I actually got caught on it last week.
That's right. If we all just kept our...
And Rob says, would you guys be willing to critique one of my calls one day on the show? It's like, yeah, I would love to do some role playing or listen to a short call and see, what were some pros, what were some cons, where were spots in the conversation where maybe you could have gone a little bit different direction to get the end result.
So that deal he just posted in the chat shows estimated value and of 1.2 million. It shows estimated equity of 1.2 million. So
wow, nice.
That would be a fun one. So hook up with, I don't know if Jesus, you're part of the group, but that would be a phenomenal.
Message me on Instagram, Jesus. Maybe we can check this the deal out offline. I got to get going, but I would love to help you with that. The house is vacant. Jesus,
vacant and a ton of equity. So every shark is going to be swimming around that injured property. So anyway, I don't see more questions. There. Yeah. So thank you, Michael, for your time. I would say anybody that is interested in data, there's a couple options. Free data. Caroline pays and gives that away. If you're ready to do, and have access to a database, go join the niche community. They've got a tremendous database that's updated constantly, and they've spent quite a bit of money making sure that data is the latest and greatest. CRM is coming and a lot of other apps. So go check that out on the niche community. So anyway, thank you everybody for your time. Good to be here, and we'll reconnect, I think, next week, possibly on a Wednesday because of Turkey Day. So.
Hey guys, if you're interested in niche, I posted a link there, so you can go check that out. There's a few videos on there that kind of give you a rundown on the community there. So feel free to take a look at it. And if you have any other questions, feel free to message me on Instagram. Bobby, I, and Caroline will be glad to make ourselves available to help you guys anytime.
Yep. Cool. Thanks so much.